The world is a mess. The world is as angry as it gets. Well, you think this is going to cause a little more anger? The world is an angry place. All of this has happened. We went into Iraq. We shouldn't have gone into Iraq. We shouldn't have gotten out the way we got out. The world is a total mess.
Trump was right. The world was a mess, and it still is. Now, whether it has always been a mess is a topic for a different discussion. It's certain, though, that it has always been at least somewhat confusing. To talk a little bit more about what's going on in the world today, I invited Francesco D'Isa, an Italian artist and philosopher. I also invited Iago Ribeiro, a Brazilian poet, psychoanalyst, and translator, to help me with this conversation. Iago has published 2 books of poetry, has recently translated John Wiener's into Portuguese, and has also recently collaborated in a psychoanalysis book called A Ver Novamente. You can find a link to his work in the description. You can also find a link to Francesco's work in the description below. But before the video starts, I'd just like to show you a little bit of Francesco's film, which won an award in the AI Monaco Film Festival 2026. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Is my true face.
The girl longed for happiness, yet resisted the idea of becoming like us. More precisely, she hoped to be happy without giving up her own identity.
I won't change anymore now.
So, thank you, Francesco, for coming here today. Thank you also, Iago. It's gonna be nice talking with both of you all.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, brother.
inviting me. Thanks,
So-
Francesco, for taking the time.
Yeah, and thank you, Iago, for showing me Francesco's
Thank
Instagram.
you both for the invite. Thank you both for the invite. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So, Francesco, I mean, right off the bat, I'd just like to know, like, before we speak about everything like the Pope, AI, your film at Monaco, we were together there. I'd just like to know, like, how did you get into all of this? Like, I think you mentioned that you studied university in philosophy there in Florence. So why did you choose philosophy?
Yes, I studied philosophy in Florence. When I was younger, I was undecided between the Academy of Art and philosophy, and I decided for philosophy. And I think I did a good. It was a good decision because in Florence the Academy was very conservative and was more interested in new technologies. So and I was very interested in philosophy. So I'm quite eclectic. I use for my research a lot of media, and visual media and written media for me is not the same, but they are both tools in order to pursue the same research. So for me, making visual art or writing books is making philosophy. It's the same for me. I remember my thesis was about Escher, the painter, the Dutch painter, and philosophy. And the idea was something like that Escher was drawing logical paradoxes. It was the translation in visual images of logical paradoxes, than other stuff about the languages of art. So for me, it was the same. It was almost the same. But sadly, I have just one life, and luckily, I have just one life. But, to tell the truth. But anyway, I had no time to do everything, so I decided for philosophy. But meanwhile, I studied like self-taught art, mainly in the digital field. So I explored the relatively new softwares for graphic design. There were no school at the time for graphic design because it was new. So I had to learn on my own. and later in my life, even when I was quite young, I started teaching because there was no people doing it. So just people who were self-taught started to teach graphic design. And then the same. It's almost the same with AI for me, because AI was the perfect joint between the written and visual world for me, because it's the first time in the human history that both you can write images, and not just this, but it's for sure it's the first time. So for me, that a person who was used to explore philosophical topics with images and text. I did the same also before AI. I did a comic, a philosophical comic with images out of copyright, stuff like this. So it's for me there is a sort of continuity, even if seeing from an external point of view, my professional life is a mess. But every ADHD man has a mess in his professional life, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you say all of this, and it's very interesting that you mention Escher as well. I see that Iago is a bit surprised with that. I didn't know. I guess Iago didn't also, but we very much like Escher. We talk about it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that later we'll try to talk about this. But this is one of the problem with this this podcast, this interview, because there are so many topics that we could discuss that we just don't have the time. We just have one life, fortunately, as you said.
Yeah.
So I mean, we gotta actually kind of try to pick some of them, leave some others behind, maybe for a different time. But you're mentioning that you got very early on into digital art and studying all that things. I'd like to know, like, how did you start with specifically generative AI? Because I'm asking you this so we can get to your film that was in the Monaco Film Festival. Because I had the impression that you crafted your images using Midjourney. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to know, like, how did you start? What kind of tools did you start using, and like where are you now?
Yes, I started. My interest was in around, I think, 20. 11, no, I don't know, 2018 probably. It was an interest more philosophical, because it was when I read the famous paper by Google about the deep dreams. Okay, I found it online, and I thought, okay, this is something I have to devote my a lot of time, and I started studying it from a philosophical point of view, and following the research. I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer, so just from what I explored it, but from my point of view, so philosophical and artistic. Then I started using AI in 2020 with GAN networks. It was very fun. And later I was one of the first, between the first with Midjourney. I was a tester in the Midjourney group. I don't remember why and how I was in this group, to tell the truth. Probably just because we were a few people exploring this stuff. So Midjourney was quite, okay, welcome. Come here and try it. And to answer your question, in the movie Monaco, yes, I used Midjourney. Not just Midjourney, I used also, I don't remember which kind of software, probably, anyway, some open source software, because I use a lot of LoRa for my images. But for the movie in Monaco, I used mainly Midjourney for the still images, yes. So the start was like this. So it's not a lot of time. It's like 7 years, but in the AI world, 7 years, I'm like an old man. So because it's a young, a very young field, at least in the new generative AI.
Yeah, even I am considered an old person in the generative
Yeah,
AI field.
exactly.
I started like 1 year and I had 2 years ago, so I'm already an ancient man in this.
Yeah, exactly.
In this world. But I mean, yeah, and the film was very nice, and I mean, we were there. But congratulations, you won the.
Thank you, brother.
I think it was the best experimental film, right? That was
Yes.
the. Yeah, and that was a very nice. I mean, the exploration of imagery was like very, it was very charming. And I would like to like ask you to get a little bit away from AI just for a second, and talk a little bit about cinema as well. I was wondering because there was some very interesting shots in the film, wide shots, and then like close-ups, and I was interested to know like who were the filmmakers that inspired you, because I had maybe a feeling of Lynch, maybe Kubrick or something like that. Like, is there anything like that?
Yes, both Lynch and Kubrick, they are between my favorite director. But it's hard to tell which one inspired me mostly, because the inspiration behind the movie are not just in cinema. They are both in visual art, poetry, comic, philosophy. So it's a huge mix. If I stay with cinema, for sure, Lynch, Kubrick, but also Kurosawa or Bergman. Bergman is one of my favorite directors. Especially Persona by Bergman is a film I found truly interesting and inspiring, both from philosophical and visual point of view. So let's say that the part more related to the cinema is closer to this author, to these authors. But I have a sort of idiosyncratic view. I mean, I'm not like a person who who know hundred of artists. Okay. Yes, I know a lot of them because I'm quite old, but and it's my work. But I'm not so an encyclopedic man, okay, like this. But when I like someone, I'm capable of seeing the same movie for one time, and then another time, another time, and so on, so on, so on. Stalker by Tarkovsky was
Yeah.
a strong influence. The first time I found this movie, I was so impressed. So I was really, I can't find the word, both in English and Italian. It was a sort of revelation, and I saw it 3 times in a row because I was hypnotized by it. But again, if I can also watch a movie just for 5 minutes and then get bored, even if it's a masterpiece. So, as I told you, I am really, really idiosyncratic in my formation.
Well, yeah, very interesting. Nice to hear that. I have similar directors that I really like, and it's funny that you mentioned Tarkovsky because at the end of his career, he actually went to Italy to do movies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a very interesting documentary about his films.
Ah,
But
I don't know.
yeah, it's very nice. But talking a little bit about that, I'm gonna start like with this question that's gonna be like referring to one of your texts now, and I think Iago also has something to say about it afterwards. You were mentioning like the inspiration, like how it's hard to say who inspired you, Kubrick, Tarkovsky, everybody, and you even like wrote this text about plagiarism and inspiration, and I have like in this text like you write about like the difficult differentiation between those two ideas, and you even mentioned the Brillo box story, which is very nice to exemplify how everybody nowadays would probably sue Andy Warhol, you know?
Yeah.
implying that this idea of plagiarism has become a common ground for everybody. And like, so it's an interesting text. It's a little bit of a genealogy of copyright. It's very nice. I'd like to know, like, do you think that there's something weird about the notion, not of copyright or everything, but of inspiration and creativity? And I ask this because, of course, like AI tools, they are often accused of theft because they work based on what other people did before. And I see in this claim that the idea that the artist or the creator works under inspiration, which seems almost like divine inspiration, almost as if he was a creator detached from everything in the world. So, I mean, what do you think about this? Why are people so obsessed with authorship, originality, or inspiration?
Yeah, I am very critical about both copyright authorship, at least the romantic idea of copyright authorship, and I believe that without theft there is no art. but many artists believe this, because a lot of artists are thief, of course, but this is not theft. It's just how creativity works. I believe that we, since my very first, very early in my professional life, I was critic about copyright and authorship. And the reason is that I think that we mistake an economical device with an ontological device. Because as an economical device, copyright has sense, but doesn't work. But anyway, as it stands. As an ontological device, meaning that an author is the only creator of something, is completely nonsensical, because every creation is a collective work. And we can't deny this, because it's obvious. Even if you make some easy thought experiment, like let's imagine someone with the peak of genius, like Picasso. Okay, let's put Picasso in the medieval times. Picasso, it was impossible to develop cubism, for example, for Picasso in medieval times. Completely impossible, because he need a lot of things that are not inside himself, are outside, are the other artist's work, the war, experience, cultural process, but even physical process or technological devices. So a lot of things. And this is why I believe that an author is necessary for the work, but not sufficient. And every work is somehow collective. So this idea that that belong to many artists, that they fear to be copied. Oh, I stole my idea. For me, it's completely nonsensical. Please stole my ideas, since they are not mine. It's not a problem. My idea are not mine. Your idea are not yours. We are in the middle of a lot of concauses and of collective process of creativity that doesn't belong just to humans, but also to animals and also to objects. That has also objects have a strong agency in everything, and also in the artistic process. Everything about plagiarism for me is nonsensical, apart of if you have some economical damage on your work. This is the only copyright was born close to the printing press. It's not a random event. The printing press, when the printing press was born, they needed the economical device in order to pay printers, not authors, later authors, but in the start printers. And this is why copyright was born. So if it worked for reward the authors and let them live, have an economical revenue, it's okay. If not, it's nonsensical. Sadly, it doesn't work in both sense, in my opinion. But this is a long story.
Yeah. Before I pass it on to Iago, because he has a very good question on authorship and everything, I just like to get the gist of it. And so you think that the question of copyright is mostly related to the economical matter than anything else, right? So I'd like to know, like, have you seen a recent paper which was written by Bernie Sanders, which kind of made the headlines in the United States regarding his idea on the profit for the copyright relating to like the AI companies?
I didn't read the paper, but maybe I think it's the something related to his ideas to give an half of the AI company to the state. It was that idea. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I was very happy because in the left and there is in my opinion, also for let's say historical and philosophical reasons, but there is a lot of taboos about AI. And Bernie Sanders also was very critical in the past about AI. Now I prefer this new line, because he admits that they are important tools. And so the next move is to make them collective. And a part of the details, I didn't study the details of the proposal, but the idea that a big part of an AI should be collective is for sure also something I believe in it.
Okay. Iago, do you have that question?
Oh, yeah. So, Francesco, would like to talk a little about your book, La rivoluzione algoritmica dell'immagine. Sorry for my Italian,
That's
but
perfect.
regarding authorship, at certain moments in your book, you draw on Eastern forms of thought, such as Zen, Taoism, as visions may be more open to thinking about this relationship between human and non-human, human and technologies, that from a Western point of view would seem to threaten some supposedly sacred places of the human, such as authorship. So, what's your relationship with these ways of thinking that come from East, and how they serve you to think about these questions?
Yes, that book will be I'm working on a new edition, and I will double it because it was just the start of my idea. And then I said, okay, let's do a new edition. And I started, okay, let me change something in the book, and then now it's already doubled. But anyway, and the Eastern philosophies are something I sadly didn't study at the university because, at least at my time, but I believe also today, even for sure less, Eastern philosophy is not studied in Western. In Western universities, for the wrong idea that is religion and not philosophy. Even if we study philosopher like Saint Augustine, so what's the meaning of this? Is also nonsensical. But anyway, I started to study it on my own. You can't just believe that a tiny part of our philosophy, of the word philosophy, is philosophy. So I was out of my studies without knowing a huge part of philosophy, and I started to study on my own. And to tell the truth, I believe that it saved my life, literally, because in order to study Eastern philosophy, I met meditation, and meditation was one of the most important discovery in my life for my well-being, because it was a tool I used in order to find peace with myself from a spiritual point of view and also from a psychological point of view, because a lot of my problems, psychological problems, were I will not say solved, but at least strongly helped by meditation. And it was also a tool that let me understand things that I was struggling with from a philosophical point of view. This, even if I am a Western man, I had no Italy, is a Catholic country, so my the atmosphere is Christian, even if my family was not. But again, I was not an atheist before. I was just confused. Okay, I was interested in the spiritual knowledge and the history of religion. And from the point of view of the authorship, the Eastern idea are very different from the Western, even if East is huge. So Chinese, India, Japan, everything is different. But anyway, there is more openness to the idea that humans are not the only creator of the world. This is the idea. There is no belief about the superiority of it's different. There is also the belief of the superiority of the human beings, but it's different from the West. It's not the peak of knowledge. It's not the peak of intelligence. So they are more open to the collective nature of creativity, both in art and in the real world. And this is why, in my opinion, in China, that is the one of the two pole of artificial intelligence, there is a cultural ground that is more fertile, is more sweet for not developing, also developing, but more spreading AI in the society. This is the reason why all the better software, text-to-video software now are Chinese, because they are a little less. They are a little far behind the US for the technologies, just a little. But in video, they are much better because they have already a market. We are still thinking about, oh my God, with AI you are not a real director. What will happen? Creativity will die, and so on. And they have already a market with movies where AI is normal. So this is how technology spread and get more and develop faster. I believe this is the reason.
Yeah, very it's funny because like all of this conversation about creativity and here in the West, at least, it seems to be full of let's say unconscious aspects of religion, of Christianity. And I mean, it can lead us to the conversation about the encyclical of the Pope. But just before we get to that, I'd just like to give Iago the chance to ask about his question about Marcel Duchamp, which is an artist that you also have written about. You're interested by, and Iago has an interesting question, which I guess before we go to the Pope, maybe this one could enter right now.
Yes, Francesco, in the same book, you say that the decisive gesture in artistic creation, AI or traditional, is the act of selection. And of course, it called to mind Marcel Duchamp, his attitude, his ready-mades, but of course not. We're not talking about stuff found on physical space when we're talking about AI and TTI models, but of outputs that come from latent spaces. It's another topic that maybe we're talking. But how close do you think artistic production with AI is to what Duchamp was doing with his ready-mades?
This is a good question. I will say not so close because Duchamp with ready-mades apparently did just one choice and then the artwork is done. With AI, you have to do a lot of work. It's not enough to write a prompt. You have they are tools. At least so far, they are tools. You have to know how to use them, to choose them. They are more like camera or even painting, okay, without the hands, but they were more like camera computers, let's say the more contemporary device, without the need of manual ability, but you have to know a lot of technical stuff in order to work with them. But what Duchamp did is important for how we conceive AI and art made by AI or with AI. That is that, in my opinion, Duchamp did one of the biggest revolutions of the next century, maybe the biggest revolution, I believe, of the next century in art. But what he was doing was also to help us to discover that the main and most important and probably the unique ingredient of art that is common to every artwork in the history of art so far, it's choice. But you have to choose something. The artist choose something. This is my artwork. Is the minimal choice. And then, but also which kind of tools to use, what how to do your work. A lot of choices. Of course, it's false that already made this just one choice because it's a journey that leads to this very, very difficult and profound choice. And anyway, there are a lot of different choices. But this is important because there was this article that, in my opinion, was horrible but interesting by Ted Chiang, that is a great writer. I love his novels, and I hated this article. And he, in order to exclude AI from the circle of art, that is completely ridiculous to exclude something from the circle of art, since Piero Manzoni did an artwork with shit. I question how can you question about AI? But this is completely out of the art of the history of art. But anyway, in order to exclude the AI, he built up this theory of art that was grounded in choices. The more choices you do, the more creative is the work. But it's an interesting idea. It's a really interesting idea. But in this quantitative version, it has a lot of problems. For example, the idea was, okay, if I'm writing, I'm doing a lot of choices. Every word, every letter I type, for example. This is wrong because when you write, you are not thinking T-A-I, you are not thinking by letter. You don't even know how you are thinking when you write. You don't even think about words, in my opinion. But anyway, there are a lot of choices in this. If you just type a prompt, there are a few choices, so it's less artistic. It doesn't work because it means that a very long, boring novel is better than the best short poetry in the world. So it doesn't work. And that Duchamp is not an artist, and this doesn't work, and a lot of other things. So the theory is really fragile. But it's interesting because, in my opinion, this idea of choice has something good because the creative process is more a set of choices than something that you have to do with your hands or mind. Less a production and more a set of choices.
Many people don't think Duchamp is an artist. Huh?
Yeah, of course. It's real.
I remember that when I got to France for the first time, I met this girl who studied classical arts in the Louvre, and then I asked her what she thought about Duchamp, and she said, "Let's switch topics." I said, okay.
But this is incredible. When I teach aesthetics to my students, I always make up a discussion about Duchamp, about do you believe that this is a work of art? And even now, more than 100 years later, there are a lot of young people that says, no, this is not art. So this is, I believe, even if the whole concept of art is born after Duchamp, and probably these people will find some conceptual artworks art because it seems cooler. I don't know, because they prefer it from the Fontaine. But anyway, a lot of people still things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, almost as if there was something kind of sacred that Duchamp broke. That's what I feel that most people think of him, and especially
And
of AI.
this is exactly why he is an artist, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And so you mentioned the Chinese people, accepting AI and using it even in cinema right now. There's much more than here. I remember that 1 month ago, I went to an AI event here in Paris, and it was full of people, well, from Europe, from the West in general, and a few Chinese. And I happened to get acquainted with the Chinese people. And I remember that the topic that people were discussing, there was a panel, was whether or not AI could create art or that kind of thing. And then I asked the Chinese girl, hey, what do you think about this? And then she said, what a piece of shit of a conversation. And then I said, in China, no one cares about this. No one cares about this. And I'm saying this because it's Duchamp and AI. These things, they seem to all be correlated. And recently, as I have spoken with you in Monaco and with Iago and somewhere else, the Pope came out with this big text, with this encyclical, talking about mankind and talking about AI and the companies that deal with AI. And to my surprise, he actually didn't say let's not use AI, but he seemed to be saying let's use AI, but the church will say how we should use AI. I know you read the text; you have some
Yeah.
interesting opinions about it. And what comes to mind? What have you thought about it since then?
Yeah, I read it and I was surprised because it was one of the better things I've read about AI so far. Not because it's perfect, but because the other were horrible. And the Encyclical was very well done from a political point of view. There was a lot of things that I agree with, like the idea of a common, the data as a common good. This is very important for me. Data are not private; they are common goods for the humankind, and the idea that against this monopoly of the big technologies companies, and of course the idea that against the use of AI in the military sector, and there was a lot of interesting points, and this was interesting because the church is again, as I said, I'm not Catholic, and to tell the truth, I'm strongly against a lot of things related to Catholicism, like, for example, abortion or euthanasia and so on. But the church is a powerful organism. They survived millennia, literally, so they are much better than our politician in order to investigate new things. Even if they seem conservative, they are more open than other progressive forces. We have to admit this. And they studied a lot. Church study. This is a good point for them. They studied a lot these new technologies. They asked also to people who are not Catholic and even maybe against Catholicism, but it doesn't care. It don't care if these people were useful for their studies, and this is also a good point for me. And the encyclical was in the end, of course, generic like every encyclical, but a good work, a good point. And a lot of people, even from the left, told, "Oh, this is what the left should say about AI. Why the church comes first." Again, of course, there were problems like. Tiny part about abortion and euthanasia, but there's this whole problem from my point of view. They are problem, and these are all the topics in Catholicism. But the stronger problem is the idea that was translated even in a sort of technical points that are not pacific in the scientific community, that AI can't be really intelligent. Okay. And as Turing told in his very famous paper about the imitation game, the problem is that intelligence, comprehension are words very vague without a definition that we can everyone can agree with it. So what does it mean if you don't give me a definition of intelligence? And this was why Turing developed the imitation game. So let's put aside this impossible problem about intelligence and let's speak about what machine can do. Okay, but it's also my point of view. But for the Catholic Church, this question has an answer because God makes us in his image. So we can't be, we have to be, sorry, the most intelligent creature in the world because we are the mirror of God and vice versa. So this is dogmatic, of course. This is a dogmatic choice. And it's understandable if you believe in the Bible and you believe if you are follow this religion, you have to believe this. But I'm strongly against this idea from a philosophical, political, and ethical point of view because from a philosophical point of view, I really don't understand how we can depict ourselves as the best creature in the world. We are horrible. But from just look at the mirror, guys. But from a political and ethical point of view, this is also a problem because it leads to this superiority. So we can manage animals, nature, and machines. Okay, machine is not a problem if they don't feel anything, but we can use them like inferior creatures because we are the best. And no, we are not the best, and we are destroying our world also because of this philosophy, in my opinion. So this was the problem of Encyclical, but this is the problem at the core of the Christian religion, and this is why I'm not Christian. But the rest of the Encyclical was, in my opinion, very well written and well done.
Yeah, and I mean well, what you just said there opens up a lot of room to talk, and I guess that Iago has a question on the Encyclical, which kind of talks about it because you mentioned like left-wing people, everything, and I think his question gets a little bit of that.
Maybe insisting on that point, you hold, Francesco, some critical views on the left's stance towards AI, and something that really caught my attention in the reception of the encyclical was that a lot of people received it as a major boost to the humanist anti-AI position. And many supposedly secular progressive people found themselves identifying with the official Catholic position, which is somewhat ironic. Uh, and you insist on a position that seems quite far from this claim of human exceptionalism that appears in the encyclical. So, what you think of this kind of reception, especially on the left?
I believe that the left had a theory that was perfect for AI, but we refused it. It was an antispecist, not human-centric idea. That it was something close to post-humanism. We had some tools, some conceptual tools that were perfect for analyzing AI, but we refused it. We, because I could say that I'm leftish man, even if I disagree with a lot of things. I probably am anarchic, but anyway. We refuse it following a different line that is more close to the Frankfurter school, but is this idea against the cultural industry because the AI comes from capitalism, so they have to be evil in every single part. And this absolutism that was wrong with Adorno and Horkheimer because, jets and cinema, they are good. Sorry, Adorno, he was right. He was not right. But they made an important book with a lot of interesting things. But to marry everything, everything that comes from capitalism is bad, this is completely logical for me. It's a rigid way to interpret the world. Under capitalism, there are a lot of things that are cool. And technology sometimes it's like this. They are cool and also problematic, of course, but we have to admit that it's almost impossible that a society that lasts at least more than 2 seconds is only horrible because the ancient Egypt was not perfect, but the pyramids are cool. We have to admit it, even if there was sort of slavery, because it was not really slavery as we think about. But anyway, so the problem is to forget completely and refuse completely the good part and refusing to modify it to I want this. I don't want to refuse these technologies. I want to change these technologies. That is most important. I want to own these technologies. This is the right direction, in my opinion. And it was perfect. The cyborg idea by Haraway, by the idea that the human beings are not the center of the universe, the anti-speciesm idea, everything it was perfect in order to welcome this idea much more than the Catholic Church. This is incredible. But all this legacy was forgotten completely. Let's think about Foucault, about the author, Barthes, about the author. We were not right-wing thinker. And we completely refused this legacy in order to marry a newborn humanism that seems gray and full of dust since the beginning. I don't know why we have to do this. And so the church that is not so conservative as it seems, because the church has changed in the millennia, in the centuries, made a move a little smarter. That's all. But they are smarter because they have a millennia-old wisdom behind them. And but this is a problem from a political point of view because the dogma is still a dogma, and this human exceptionalism is something that I find really toxic, and we have not to accept it in order to accept a more welcoming and I will say leftish idea of AI, that is the Pope's idea. It seems weird when I think I'm telling it, but yes, it's a more leftish idea of AI, the Pope's idea, but you have to take it away from the big companies. Okay, I agree. Compagno Papa, as I would say in Italian. Comrade Pope.
The left is now a little bit more retroactive than the church. What a weird thing here. Let's see. And do you think that this? Do you think that deep inside the leftist worldview there is some deep Christianity there, almost in an unconscious way? Because, for example, one of the great arguments I'm sure you've heard about it when even when speaking with people, because when I do my AI films, I always hear this, is that AI lacks something that we have, and in the Encyclical, there is a very interesting thing that the Pope says, which it feels to me like the exact same argument, but in theological terms. And then he says this, he says this, in the era of AI, when human dignity is threatened by new forms of dehumanization, ours is the pressing duty to remain profoundly human. We must lovingly safeguard the grandeur of humanity bestowed upon us and revealed in its fullness in Christ, the splendor of which, and that's the main point, no machine can ever replace. So it's as if in the Christian idea there is something in the human which machine can never replace, which is kind of the soul and
Exactly.
the creativity, So it's a funny relationship between this leftist ideal and the church, and at the same time the Pope is a little bit more open towards it than the left's thing. So how do you think this weird relationship came to be? Do you have any?
I'm not an expert about this, but I will say that some leftish idea, let's say derived by communism, for example, by Marxism, are very close to Christian idea. And one is the human exceptionalism. That's all. This is the same problem at the core. But later theory from the left changed this somehow. But I will say not enough, because we still are behind this human exceptionalism. Because, humans love to be feeling special. And also the idea of progress, that we can make a society way much better, the best society of the moment. Okay, I'm simplifying, of course. It's an idea that follows that the human being is a good thing. Okay, my opinion is completely different. The human being is one of the worst animal in the world, and we have to manage our problems in order to make less damage as we can. This is what I believe. And but following this in my opinion, more honest idea of our species, I believe we can be much better with other people and animals. And this is a little closer. Every religion put the human in the center. But anyway, probably Buddhism, Taoism has something a little closer to the idea that we are not so special. Because, we are all suffering beings. We have to be compassionate with every living beings. The idea that we have no essence in Buddhism. In the Hinduism, of course, there are the humans are in the top of the pyramid. There are the gods that are better, but anyway, the humans are still on the top. But I believe that in some more complex waves of Buddhism, like Mahayana, the idea of Pratitya Samutpada, all this stuff is more. It's propose something that is closer to what in the West we call flat ontology. There is nothing that is superior to other things. But this is just not enough influential, probably. We discovered that these thinkers were not really digested by the same people who says that they were the best thinker in the world.
Yeah, this idea of exceptionalism. Go on, Iago.
And maybe all this residual Christianism is why Duchamp still mates with rejection. He, I think, undermines the whole idea of a creator and of creation as if something that comes ex nihilo and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. This is the reason, because it's time to break the essence of art, showing that there is no essence of art, and we are strongly essentialist. We believe in, even if we are not a Christian, we believe in something that is close to the soul or whatever. But we humans have this sacred sparkle of what? Of making rapism, genocide, wars. This is our sparkle. I'm closer to Choran in this.
Yeah, Emil Cioran. And yeah, talking about exceptionalism, it's a very weird idea. Whether it's the human or the American one, it leads to very very weird outcomes. And since you're mentioning Cioran and other authors in that regard, and speaking about what we are speaking right now, I'd like to give also Iago the word, because I think that we can, in your speech and the things you write, we can also have the intuition of some relationship of yours with the idea of unconscious. So Iago has an interesting question about that, and I would love to know what you have to say about it.
Yes, Francesco, at certain moments in your book, you make en passant references to the notion of the unconscious, to think about TTI models or relationship with them. For instance, at some point you note disconcerting resemblances between the images that emerge from latent spaces and the ones that come to our minds in pre-sleep and meditative states. And you go so far as to suggest, metaphorically, that a TTI model would contain something like patterns analogous to Jungian archetypes. Uh, could you say more about what draws you to the unconscious here?
Yes, of course. First, let me be a little more precise when I speak about human exceptionalism. Of course, is the white male human is in the real center, but we are racist even between us. But speaking about the unconscious, of course, it was it was a metaphor, but it's interesting to see, especially in text-to-image models, not really in large language models, But in text-to-image models, since from the start, from the beginning, now a little less, but it still happens. What was interesting was also that concepts were melted together, like it happens in dreams, especially with the first models that were a little weaker. You were looking at an image and you can't name what the image is, even if it seems you recognize it. Because shapes, forms, they have somehow a meaning, but really not precise, really not really shaded. And so a meaning was continuously melting into another and so on. And this is very similar to what happened while dreaming, sometimes meditating, that you have no very definite idea, but this is more like an ocean of different things and different shapes. And this happens also because the data set is not infinite, but it's quite huge, and there are a lot of things, and they can be melted together, they can be fused together with your prompt that gives the direction in this vector space in order to meet an image, because you find an image even if you make, but the image in theory is right there, because the huge mind has all the possible image, but you, with the prompt and the other devices, you find an image in this latent space. And a lot of these images are weird, are completely incomprehensible, are noise, and other are this sort of blending between different ideas. And they emerge from the data, from our data, so somehow they are a sort of, again, this is a metaphor, a sort of collective mind where you can draw something from. And again, it's not literal, but I haven't seen in my life nothing so similar to my dreams, to human dreams in general, than AI generated images. Because some artists did it, but they are not so deep like text to image. You can really get some images that is so nonsensical, so meaningless and conceptually blended, that you say, okay, this is something that comes more from dreams than from human beings. It's interesting to investigate why, of course.
Yes, and it's also very interesting to. Did you want to say something, Iago?
Yeah,
Go on.
because there is this Brazilian psychoanalyst, Emile Magno, a great thinker actually. He claims that the unconscious is always already prosthetic and inseparable from our media and our technological environment. So, the moment we start dealing with AI models, they are already part of our mind's functioning. What do you think about that? Maybe it, well,
You're speaking about Mate Blanco, maybe, or I didn't got the name.
uh, MD Magno, a Brazilian
Ah, no, another one.
psychoanalyst.
Another one. Because I don't know if Ignacio Mate Blanco is Brazilian. Ignacio Mate Blanco, I don't know, I don't remember where he's from. But anyway, yes, it's there is something that is quite similar. I don't know him, and I will look for his ideas, because I never read it. But from what you say, it's there is some interesting link. So yes, probably yes. These are alien minds, even if they are not minds like ours, of course. They are completely different, not completely, but very different. But there is somehow a relation between us and them. And it's interesting because sometimes you can understand better this relation with social science, psychology, than with engineering or informatics. Even if, again, they are different, of course, but just this.
Yeah. Well, Francis, there are so many things we could talk about in relation to this, like quantum computing, quantum everything, humanoids, everything. But we don't have infinite amount of time here, and we don't want to go too much over 1 hour. So I guess that just before we finish it, I'd like to ask you if you would recommend for not only for us but everybody who's watching some texts, new texts, interesting things relating to AI that you recently read. For example, Antonio Somaini, for example, who writes about
Yeah.
latent spaces. And I mean, maybe if he comes on the podcast once, maybe I could invite you too, and we'd have a big conversation, all of us. But yeah, before we finish it off, do you have any recommendations of this world?
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff which is interesting,
Yeah.
but there is not really a lot about AI and art. So there is Somaini, who was also curating an exhibition that sadly I didn't saw, but the exhibition is still traveling, so I hope in the future I will manage to see it. And Lev Manovic, for sure. There is this interesting book with Emanuele Arielli, Artificial Aesthetics. They put the English version. Manovic published the English version in his website, so it's open access. It's free. It's easy to find. And something interesting. I read something by. Then I have this problem that forget all the name. I forget every name I met in my life, even my wife sometimes. So this is really a problem. His name? Let me find out.
Yeah.
Because it was published in Italian, but he is a French thinker.
Yeah.
It was an interesting political analysis. The name was Stefan Grumbach. Stefan
Stefan
Grumbach, yes.
Grumbach.
Stefan Grumbach, exactly. The book in Italian is Algorithm Empires, but I don't know the original title, if the original title is the same. And this is an interesting analysis from a political point of view that I've read recently. But also David Gunkel, I will suggest also Ethan Mollick for exploring the new tool is a very interesting thinker. Okay, that's enough with names for me.
Yeah. Well, Francesco, thank you very much for coming. I'll obviously put the links to some of your books, articles on the description, and thank you very much, Iago, as well, who has also poetry books, also translating an American poet right now. I forgot his name. What is it, Iago, again?
John Wieners, the
John
big
Wieners,
poet.
exactly. John Wieners, big poet, everything in Portuguese. So, yeah, guys, it was very, very good, and thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Pedro.
Iago. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much, Pedro.
Francesco.